full screen.
I will start the time when you start speaking.
Okay.
I'll give you the full 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name's Vic. I live in Ward 2. 3 months ago, delegates spoke to council about the budget directly from J.C. Beamer Park. Amongst delegates were Talal and John, encampment residents living in that very park. In very plain terms, the ask was made. City councilors, is there any solution for us? Then let's look forward to it. Let's get it to the right path. A couple weeks ago, I woke up to the news that the heat vents behind City Hall had been blocked in using city-constructed barricades, costing over $25,000, and then heard that over $100,000 is being put towards potential consulting costs. It is so demoralizing to see a price tag like that slapped to a structure that costs the city more, when the alternative to let people be warm where they can would cost nothing. When so many of us are living paycheck to paycheck, being evicted and or housing precarious, and when that same day, yet another encampment was evicted in negative temperatures. 3 hours ago, I was at the Red Hill Valley encampment, where residents are facing yet another eviction this Wednesday, scrambling to figure out where and how to move. But in the spirit of positivity, let's recap 2021. And here are some solutions that I've personally seen the city, alongside its institutions, implement towards the housing crisis. Sending people to a shelter hotel without harm reduction supports and a 2.5-hour walk to services downtown. Telling people to set up their tents in the escarpment woods. $20 sounds like what it is. Handing people cash and asking them to cooperate in order to vacate a park. Referencing available shelter space that does not exist. After the housing department and shelter workers reaffirmed that there was not enough space, getting on the news and doubling down. Sending people not actively in crisis to crisis centers, where you are discharged after 5 days. Passing motions. This one is mysterious even to me, as no one quite knows what they achieve. Repealing a 14-day encampment protocol overnight, because it was made publicly known that the city was not following its own protocols. Giving encampment residents with complex survival setups 2 hours notice to move to a new location, after telling them that there is no indoor space available. There are always choices about where to place funding. The Hamilton Police Chorus, Choir, and Pipe Band alone net $31,300 this year, nearly the same amount of funding that is being allocated to food for prisoners for the entire year. The horse-mounted unit nets over $800,000 in this year's police budget. But I can anticipate the argument. Housing people would cost so much more. So here's the thing, you have the infrastructure. There are thousands of vacant properties standing in Hamilton, some of which would be immensely suitable conversions to housing at a much lesser cost to the city. That's a choice. A lot of this boils down to choices. As a kid translating ODSP paperwork for my mom, I used to think that so much of the injustice people experience on the daily had very complicated solutions that I would come to understand as I got older. Now I understand that these problems are actually rather simple. People in power are just very good at complicating the reasons behind their choices. It took one night to repeal an encampment protocol months in the making. It is not difficult to say we will not evict encampments while we find funding and allocate that into housing. I've watched councillors roll their eyes, scoff, threaten, and lose their temper in the face of community members asking for investment in housing, as if we're irrational, as if we're children that just don't understand how the system works. And yet the people making the decisions would suggest to a young person's face that they house encampment residents in a backyard that they don't have, and as if we haven't already. We've heard counselors allude to shelter space that does not exist and admit not knowing how many shelters or beds there are in this city. We've had politicians suggest that we do the free labor of drafting policies and advocacy campaigns, and we have, because we believe in the work. Counselors, I must ask you, what do you believe in? Do you believe yourselves to be a kind person? Do you believe your kindness is a politic itself that justifies your choices? Because when we demand investment in housing, we do not say it abstractly. There are names and faces in our mind, people we know who have died because of lack of access to housing. We have our friends and families in mind who have been houseless, who have had to choose between food and rent. Perhaps our unhoused neighbors are abstract concepts to you, but that's not the case to us, and their lives matter. When your work as a counselor panders to landlords and gated communities and real estate developers, your work will never be politically responsible. And I actually genuinely wonder every night, it keeps me up, if you even understand that you have the power to change the city for the better. Thank you.
Vic, are you able to take your presentation down so I can see the screen, please? Thank you. Thank you. I think our chair had technical difficulties and we may have lost her. Can we give her just a moment, people, to get back in? Unless we could have possibly another counselor take over the chair until Counselor Vanderbeek can get back in the meeting. Thank you, Counselor Farr. Yes. You're muted, sir.
And if you like, Madam Chair, I can jump into as the previous.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
There you are. Yeah, Caitlin Thompson is next, and I'll hand it over to Lloyd. Thank you.
And there, I'm just setting up my screen.
So, sorry,
I'm not sure who's chairing, but I did want to say one thing, if I could, to the delegate.
Yes, Councillor Ferguson, you came in at the last minute. Councillor Nan did have her hand up to ask Vic a question. And you're muted, Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Nan.
Thank you, Vic. I just wanted to, on behalf of council, apologize that your dead name was used publicly in naming you prior to this delegation presentation that you gave today. All council members have gone through a trans protocol training. All of us have been working diligently to make sure that our pronouns are being used correctly and that we as a corporation and as a governing body are an inclusive and welcoming place for people of all gender. So I just wanted to take a moment to publicly acknowledge that and also flag to clerks that we need to address this issue. Thank you.
Just to respond to that, thank you. And Vic, that's my fault. My apologies.
It's okay.
I actually thought
appreciate
I had it wrong because when I had sent you the email, it automatically popped up with the other name. So I thought I had it wrong. So that wasn't Councillor's fault. It was definitely mine. And the email, Councillors, I can certainly show you, came up with the other name.
Yeah, it's
well,
totally okay. I just don't think it's the priority here. So I hope that there were takeaways other than that. But I genuinely appreciate that, Councillor Nan. Thank you.
Okay,